to get to the top 1% from the top 10%, it's not 10 times more work, it's 1,000 times more work. It's just so much easier to focus on what people are telling you will make you successful versus going, nah, I'm going to do something different.
I say this a lot, and I get a little bit of pushback, but I don't believe most people should be an entrepreneur.
No, I agree with you 100%. Most people should not. You really don't realize how close or how far away you are from something. So I always try to really remember that lesson, because something you learn from somebody, you think like, oh, it's just somebody giving you encouragement, or it's just somebody giving you a tip that may or may not even be valid. Actually, if you act on it, it can change your life. You just realize how your life can get nudged in one direction, but it's like space, right? If something is off by a millimeter when it launches, it's like 3,000 light years away from the target when it finally lands. And that's like how life is in so many ways, right?
Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I usually wear like got my like cool guy clothes, but since I'm on a family trip to Legoland right now, I've replaced it all with like comfortable walking. This is how this happens, right? Comfortable walking shoes, and you're like, okay, and you're like comfortable pants, things that can get baby poop on them, and then suddenly you wake up and you go, oh, I look like a dad now.
You became your dad.
This is how it happened. Well, maybe not mine. But sorry, Dad. You're cool and all that, but we're not there yet. Yeah, you become a dad. It reminds me of, you ever see that Obama clip where they call him out for wearing dad jeans, and he's like, those jeans are comfortable. No plans to get rid of those jeans. And I'm like, I get it now. Before I was like, come on, man, you're the president. Get some respectable. No.
Do you have the Joe Montana Skechers on? That's the question.
No, I do not. No.
Okay. Those are the ultimate walking dad shoes.
Yeah. Not quite there yet.
But I'm really glad we finally got to do this. I have been hunting you down for a while.
Yeah.
Because I am a big fan.
Appreciate that.
And I'll be honest, the reason I'm a big fan is your ethos on relationships is mine as well.
Oh, good.
And I don't hear enough about it being talked about, leading with it. I mean, your whole show, like Jordan Harbinger, is known as the relationship guy.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I, being a relationship guy, wrote a book on it, courses, have even, as I mentioned to you, I talk about you in them.
Yeah.
Because I've learned from you about it and believe it is the foundational principle of success for me. And I think you've achieved the same.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have done half of what I've done without tons of help from people, like thousands of people throughout the course of my career. And I can go all the way back to even pre-law school, which makes me feel old saying that because it was like 30 years ago that it was pre-law school, or maybe it was 25. Let's not do the math. And I wouldn't have probably even got into law school if it weren't for people around me pulling a little bit of extra weight when I was struggling.
And you didn't really understand it at the time because no one does. You're a kid. No. You're a teenager. Right. You're a young adult. You're just kind of moving through. But at what point did you really start to realize, oh my gosh, the power of who I know and how you build those quality relationships is going to be a springboard for me professionally, personally, emotionally, and all the benefits that come?
I think the real cold shower / wake up moment was certainly when I was doing the law thing on Wall Street. So the seedling of this was when I was in high school. I lived in former East Germany, which, as some people might know, Germany was divided down the middle. The West was the Brits and the French. It's all after World War II, and they were like, okay, we're going to rebuild this Western capitalist Germany that's going to become an economic powerhouse. East was basically Soviet Union satellite state, full of spies, repressive Stasi secret police, and communism and like dangerous factories. It was just black and white on one side and color on the other. And I went to be an exchange student in Germany, not knowing really the difference between the East and the West, just being in high school, not knowing a ton about communism and repressive regimes.
So you had no idea when you...
No idea. This is 7 years after reunification, so they're just saying it's Germany. There were 45 exchange students. 43 were in the West, and 2 of us were in the East, and it's something along those lines. And I remember going like, why are they telling us where we're located? Who cares where we're located? And then somebody on the phone was like, well, because that side is the side that used to be communist a few years ago. I was like, oh. So I started looking it up on Yahoo. I don't even think Google was a thing back in this is like mid 90s. And I start looking it up and I'm like, oh, these pictures are really not flattering. Does it still look like this? Oh, they're starting to rebuild things. Okay, but what about the part where they're putting me? No, not really. It's just like, okay. So I was really nervous about going there.
And you didn't back out?
No, I didn't back out because the exchange organization was like, oh, yeah, you can reapply, but you will definitely not get placed anywhere unless you want to go to like Ukraine or something. Or I don't even remember what it was, but It was like, you're not going to Australia, France, New Zealand, Germany, the UK, any sort of country
the
that
Amalfi
you could,
Coast, maybe?
Yeah, no, like you're not going to Italy. You're going to a country. You can reapply and you'll get placed in a country you've never heard of as a high schooler. Like you might get an exchange family in Senegal, which honestly, looking at it as an adult, would have been awesome. Someplace in Africa would have been super cool. So you could be like in Uzbekistan. It would have been 100% amazing. But that didn't appeal to me at age 16. I wanted to like go where there were girls and parties and fun stuff, and it was kind of Western but kind of not, and I was unique and fun.
Yeah, you were thinking brats and beer.
Yeah, I was thinking brats and beer. I originally wanted to go to Israel. My parents were like, absolutely not. Have you seen the news? And the answer was no, because I'm in high school. And then they vetoed that one. Then I wanted to go to Hong Kong, and my parents were like, oh, China's taking it over? No thanks, because as our parents' generation, when the communists took something over, they locked people behind a wall and you never saw them again.
Yes.
And you had repressive Stasi police, which ironically,
like East Germany.
Right. Ironically, where I ended up. But of course, it was reunified then. But anyway, I had a host family there. Super interesting people. The father was a gym teacher and a musician, and he, during the communist times, had a band. He still has a band, but whatever. During the communist times, he was a young guy with a band. And the way he got things done was through kind of hustle and relationships. And one example that he told me that I'll never forget was in the former, if we want to get a driver's license here, you go to the DMV, you take a test that's actually quite a bit harder than I remember when I had to retake it. It's quite a bit tricky. There, it's like a 2-year-long process. You go to driving school. It's kind of expensive. You apply, There's bureaucratic wait times. Then when you're done with that, you get a sign-off and a stamp, and you go to the police, and then they sit on your forms for a long time. Then you get a driver's license. Then you apply to buy a car, which might take like 4 years. So my host father was like, crap, I already know how to drive because my friend has a car, and when he's drunk, I drive, and when I'm drunk, he drives. Like, that's how it works, right? It was that kind of thing. So he calls his cousin in Canada and goes, send me a case of Jack Daniels. And he's like, all right. Sends him a case of Jack Daniels. It arrives with 2 bottles missing. That's like the tax the customs guys took out of the case. It's like either you get nothing or you get it with a few bottles taken out. So he gets the 10 bottles of Jack Daniels. He goes to the driving school and goes, I'd like to learn how to drive. And the guy goes, well, here's the process, and unfurls this long sheet of paper. And he's like, what if I show you that I can drive right now, and I give you these 2 bottles of Jack Daniels? And the guy's like, get in the car. So they go in the car, and he's like, yeah, you're a good enough driver. Fine. No problem. Seems you've got experience. Takes the Jack Daniels, takes his little slip of paper, goes to the cops and says, hi, I've got this slip of paper that says that I can drive. Can I have a driver's license? They're like, well, there's quite the long process. We've got to have it adjudicated, whatever it is. And he's like, what if I give you guys these 2 bottles of Jack Daniels and I show you that this form is legit? You call the guy at the driving school and you just put this at the top of the pile instead of the bottom. And they were like, sounds good to us. So they did that, and he walks out after 2 weeks, whatever long, with a stamped, laminated driver's license. And I thought, okay, that's corruption, but there is a fine line where it's like, did anyone get hurt doing that? Maybe somebody waited a couple extra days for their license. Again, that's corruption. I don't think that's the way to handle things. However, in the current situation, when I was there, he would do things like, oh, we're going to go see this, but there's always a line. Let me call my friend and see if his friend's cousin's friend's uncle, whatever, still works there. And he would do that, and we would show up there, and he'd bring the guy like some chocolates or something, or like, oh, I went to the farm and I got this sausage freshly made. Here, I want to give you some. And the guy'd be like, great, thanks. And it was, yeah, no problem. We get like free entry and no waiting in line to some place. And I was like, this is really good. This is how you do it. How do I figure out how to systemize this in my own life? Not like I'm going to live my whole life doing this. I just thought, this guy's got perks. He's not the governor of whatever state. He's not the mayor of our city. But the neighbor was our police chief. So if we needed anything, we could like go to him. There was always little things like that. And then as I got older and I went to go to apply to things that were competitive like law school, I remember getting waitlisted at Michigan and just not getting it to the University of Michigan Law School. And I was already undergrad at Michigan. And I thought, oh my gosh, where am I going to go? I don't know what to do now. I got waitlisted. Am I going to get in? And then they finally closed the wait list, and they were like, good luck with your future. You're not getting in. And I told all my friends who had already gotten in, a bunch of them, I said, hey, I didn't get in. What should I do? Thinking they would go like, oh, apply to this other school that's like easier to get into. And my friend goes, hey, look, I've spent 50 hours looking at all the message boards, researching everything, because that's the kind of guys these guys are. That's why they got into Michigan and I didn't, right? So I was like backpacking through Europe, like, whatever, man, give me another beer, and they had done the research. They go, look, there's a couple people in the country who have gotten into other law schools through the following Hail Mary method after the waitlist is closed. And they said, write a letter describing that you would like to be let in for next year, not the coming year, but the year after. And the reason you should be let in is because since you were on the wait list for this long, it must mean that you're qualified, but there simply weren't enough spots because there were too many amazing candidates. You must have just barely not made the cut. It must have been a tough decision. Put me in for the next year's class while if you're on the fence about me, I'm willing to delay my legal education for a year if I can get into my dream school. So I wrote this letter thinking like, well, that was 15 minutes of my life wasted for sure. Sent it in as an email from my girlfriend's parents' cottage somewhere in northern Michigan. Went to, I don't know, go to dinner, came back to a reply that said, hey, we're actually meeting with the admissions committee tomorrow.
Same day.
We're going to just, it was like it was within a couple of hours. We're going to discuss this. And I said, wow, okay. I'm surprised they even opened it, didn't delete it, didn't go like, oh, this guy didn't get in. We're already done, moving on. Then I think it was the day after that, they were like, hey, congratulations. I'd like to offer you admission into the class of, I can't remember, whatever, the year after. And I just thought, whoa, I just got into one of the best law schools in the United States because I sent an email that my friend suggested. This is going to change my life.
Yeah.
And I almost just didn't bother. I literally remember going, why do this? I had nothing else to do. I was waiting to go to dinner with my girlfriend and her parents. Oh, I'll just type it out. It's not that hard. I'm on the phone with my buddy. He's like, here's what I would say. So it wasn't that they kicked me in the door. It wasn't they didn't put in a good word. They were just new students that were newly admitted. They had no clout.
You mean you weren't going on to the rowing team?
Yeah, I wasn't going on to the rowing team, if y'all know what I'm saying. Yeah. There was none of that. It was just, we've seen this work elsewhere. So I had this almost like committee of guys and a couple of women that were like, hey, we've seen this supposedly work, and you should give it a shot. Okay, but I don't know how to do this. And they'd already started the summer classes, so they're like, here's kind of how legal arguments look. So I sort of structured my letter like that. I didn't put formal case briefing.
The IRAC method?
No, I don't even remember that, man. But it was something like, you clearly am qualified. Here's why. And clearly that was I oversold clearly, but you get the idea. And it was just like, here's a logical set of reasons why I should be let in, although I understand if you stick with your current decision. However, it looks like you guys are on the fence. Let me just tap myself over the line here, if I may, by offering to delay my legal education first. So I go abroad for a year, and I end up going to Michigan Law. Now, that was almost one of those fluky things where you just realize how your life can get nudged in one direction. But it's like space, right? If something is off by a millimeter when it launches, it's like 3,000 light years away from the target when it finally lands. And essentially, that's like how life is in so many ways, right? It's you really don't realize how close or how far away you are from something. Like, you might never have started Everbowl if you'd gotten really into CrossFit. You might be the CEO of a chain of CrossFit gyms or something. Like, who knows?
Sure.
So or you might just be like, you could be some sort of pro athlete. You just don't know. And so I always try to really remember that lesson, because something you learn from somebody, you think like, oh, it's just somebody giving you encouragement, or it's just somebody giving you a tip that may or may not even be valid. Actually, if you act on it, it can change your life. So now I have this bias towards action, which I actually think a lot of successful people have. When I talk to them on the Jordan Harbinger Show, you see this bias towards action where people go, oh, like Shaq's a good example. Yeah, a lot of guys that I know in the NBA are broke, but a lot of guys I know from the NBA are really rich. What did they do that the broke guys didn't do? They took their money and they put it into Shaq's Big Chicken or whatever it is, their own franchise. Now they're passively, always in quotes, making $20 million a year because they're franchising this chicken place all over the United States. Whereas the other guy got bottle service at some club every weekend, and now he is selling cars at a used car dealership.
I mean, it's very true. And I think two things you said that I kind of want to ask you about. So you mentioned at the beginning, it was kind of corrupt, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the truth is that gray area, I think either pushes people to the corruption side or not at all.
Yeah.
Instead of understanding that this world is run by humans. And there is a human bias to people we like. It's just the way it works.
It is, yeah.
So you can fight it. You can put your head in the sand and say, that's not fair. Or you can use it as a tool to help you have a better quality of life.
There's a lot of people that push back on stuff like this. And I get it. Look, when I think I posted about this on, it's probably Reddit. You know, I didn't get in. And I was like, here's what I did. No guarantees. This probably doesn't even work anymore. And I remember people going, see, I hate this. You took a spot from somebody who deserved it more. Did I, though? Did somebody who sits on their hands and goes, well, I put in the paperwork, I did my part, does that person deserve it more versus somebody who got essentially a committee of people together? That committee did a bunch of research, gave me an idea, I executed on the idea. This is what they look for, which is initiative, somebody who can do these kinds of things.
Standing out.
And by the way, lawyers have to generate business for their firm by making connections, have to be good at having other people have their back, getting teams together. Is that really less deserving than the guy who got a tiny tenth of a point higher than me on his LSAT or whatever? No, of course not.
It's not.
So actually that person didn't deserve it more. That's literally what the admissions committee frickin' decided in that meeting.
Now, if you had stapled a $100 bill, then the person might have a point.
Right.
Now you may have a resource they don't.
That 100%. If I had my dad build a library for the law school, okay, well, didn't deserve it as much, but then
potentially. But then again, you built a law school for the That's a different one because you built it for everybody's use.
Sure.
The $100 goes to only the admission.
I see what you mean. Yeah, you're right. Then you're right. The library is debatable because now the school's in a better position.
Sure.
The rank goes up, and it's better for the whole student body in theory. Right. If I just took the person out for a steak dinner and they were like, you know what, I like this guy because he buys me things, that's undeserving. But if you earn it through a different way, I am not a get all A's kind of guy. I am not a 170. What is the top score on the LSAT? 170 something. I didn't get anywhere near that, so we don't worry about that. I always have to go outside the system to succeed inside the system. That's like my whole thing. Even in college, I wanted to do a business degree of some kind, but I don't know where you went to school.
University of Arizona.
That's
Harvard
right.
of the West.
I did know that. If you try to go to a business school in undergrad or even in grad especially, there's all these, what do they call them, like weeder courses? Well, you've got to take calculus. And you're just like, oh, crap, this is not going to go well. And you've got to take accounting 131. You're like, accounting, that sounds interesting. And it's like, oh, it's graded by a curve by a soup Nazi of a professor whose mission is to get rid of people who are not just willing to sacrifice their whole life to get a B+ in this course. That's not what I wanted to do. I was like, listen, I just want to actually learn about business. I'm not trying to go work at JP Morgan. I just want to learn about how this stuff works. Why do I have to take accounting 131? So I found that there was a way to make your own concentration in undergrad. And the way you do that is you petition the Academic Standards Board. And the way you do that is you pick a bunch of courses, you explain why they are important to you and what you're learning, you name your degree yourself, and then they decide whether or not it's rigorous enough. So I picked a bunch of languages, a bunch of political science and economics classes, presented it, and they were like, great, what do you want to call it? And I was like, well, this has got to sound impressive. So I came up with Integrated International Commerce. So now I'm the only person graduating from the University of Michigan undergrad with Integrated International Commerce. And I remember everybody asking me about this especially when I was applying to law school, like, we've never heard of that degree. Like, first, like, did he really graduate from here? Because I've never heard of that degree, and I've been here for 10, 20 years. Oh, he made it himself. Well, that's interesting. That's unique. It doesn't go, oh, he made it himself. What kind of loser does that? It's, oh, he must really be a different kind of bird. And that is what they're looking for, like somebody who stands out. I'm not going to stand out because I got A's in calculus and I'm not the varsity football captain of my high school. That stuff's not going to happen for me. So we've got to look at other ways to stand out. And a lot of people frown on that. It's like, oh, you couldn't compete in the main system. If you're swimming upstream the whole time, this is going to be a terrible metaphor. Salmon swim upstream. What if there was a salmon that figured out a way to magically swim downstream and succeed in the same way?
Better.
They're going to reproduce a hell of a lot more, right? Or they found a way to just magically transport. They took the van at the marathon. You ever seen that guy? So there's cheating, right? Slipping the $100 bill and taking the van at the marathon. And then there's figuring out a way to just sort of bypass the crowd and go slightly around everybody and end up in a finishing position. And that's always been kind of my thing, because I think a lot of people who are not academic all-stars, they start to think like, oh, I'm just not cut out for this. I don't know that many CEOs, founders who are like, yes, I was the valedictorian of my high school. Those people make great COOs, chief legal counsel, accounting, business folks, MBAs, whatever. Those people do great at that. The founders, they're always like, oh, yeah, well, I tried this and then I dropped out over this because I started this business and the landscaping thing was doing well. My parents hated it. And then I kind of went over here and did some college, and then I dropped out again because I started this exercise bike company and ... It's Peloton or whatever, right?
That's right.
And you're just like, well, I can't really argue with that. So you really do have to figure out ways around systems. And as a founder, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, I don't really know any given day. I'm always trying to figure out how to solve a problem. And it's almost never sit down and do really well on some test. That's never the answer.
Because the test isn't, I think people fail to realize what college is meant for. So, fun fact, I also dropped out of business as my degree because of accounting. Except I didn't.
Oh, because of accounting? Yeah.
It was like, this doesn't make sense. I can't sit in this. But I didn't come up with my own super cool, new, I'm the only one with a degree.
20/20 hindsight.
Fun fact, I had this really hot girl that was sitting next to me in accounting. Yeah. She is also dropping out. And I said, what degree are you going for? And she said, regional development. And I said, that sounds interesting. And I went with her to regional development. It's SimCity, the real life, like why things get built where they are.
That's pretty cool.
I had no idea.
That sounds interesting.
I did it for a dumb reason, but I graduated with a degree in regional development.
Fair.
And it was the easier path to get my grades.
Yeah.
And get my degree. I wish I'd created my own, because now I could be sitting here with my own.
Regional development sounds pretty impressive too.
Yeah, except it's not. It's SimCity.
Yeah.
I'm not even very good at the game.
Fortunately, nobody cares now.
No, and I've used nobody cares what you do in college.
No.
It's not even teaching you how the real world works.
No.
It's really a opportunity for them to get a bunch of people together. Can you stick to a plan? Can you learn something? Can you follow through? Can you stay committed? Can you learn how to be an adult when you're not yet an adult?
Right.
We'll call it adulting summer camp, or 4 years camp, whatever you want to call it. And can you stand out? Because you're right. When you look at all the people out there, I got a 4.2 and I did. That's great. And there's a laundry list of people who can share that. How many have an integrative international?
Commerce. Well, it's true, right? So there's those people have mastered the well-worn path, and good for them. That's a lot of work. The trick is to go, wait a minute. Everybody who's fighting is in this narrow column. Why do I have to stay in that column again? And the answer is you don't. It's just outside is there be dragons, right? There's a big black box that doesn't tell you. There's no sort of obvious path to success. So it's safer and sort of more obvious how you get to the top of everything in between the lines.
Yep.
You just study a little bit more, get a little bit more extracurricular tutoring, shore up your weak points in math or science, whatever it is, with tutors. Go to school on Saturday for your language. But other folks who are figuring out how to exist in an uncertain environment, those people can work outside of that column. And that's where people like you and I end up shining, and that's what you need, coincidentally, to run a successful business. You have to be able to deal with uncertainty. A lot of people I see online or in my inbox, for example, we have an advice segment on Fridays. People write in like, how do I do this? It's really the uncertainty that they're scared of, because it's not that hard to contact, let's say, a company and go, I want to do I want to start a franchise. Well, you need to learn these things. But it's uncertain. What if I don't do this right? What if this doesn't work? What if it's a bad location? Thankfully, franchise companies have often thought of all of these things. That's why they won't let you buy one and put it in the middle of a desert with no traffic. But for the sake of example, it's just so much easier to focus on what people are telling you will make you successful versus going, nah, I'm going to do something different. It's like, okay, but nobody knows how you're going to get there from here. This is a straight line. You're fighting traffic, but it's a straight line. This is a weird zigzaggy thing. Nobody knows if you're just going to end up worse off than when you started. You might end up way out here. There's no guarantees. So it's safer to just outwork everyone. But that's not really where most of us have our competitive advantage. You can naturally be smarter than everyone. Great. If that's you, awesome.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Yeah. If you can outwork everyone, that's going to get you pretty far too. If you're smart and you can outwork everyone, that's going to get you to the top-ish on like Wall Street, medicine, working at your hospital, whatever it is. But if you can be smart, you don't have to be a genius, outwork everyone, and you're willing to deal with a medium to high level of uncertainty, you can be an absolute superstar that way, because that's uncertainty kills everybody else. It just we're not evolved to deal well with it. Our brains hate it. It's like an itch you can't scratch. It never goes away. Most people can't live in that zone of uncertainty. It freaks them out. They lose sleep.
Which I say this a lot, and I get a little bit of pushback, but I don't believe most people should be an entrepreneur.
No, I agree with you 100%. Most people should not do this. It's not healthy.
And somehow we've glorified and sexified this professional choice in the last 10 years because of social media because of these individuals that, and influencers who highlight what you can buy with money makes you think that, I want to have my own schedule. And then, of course, the 4-hour work week made it sound even better because it doesn't require hard work.
Right.
And it's just so easy.
Some guy in India will do it all for you. Right, yeah.
Right. And I think what you're illustrating here is it's true, because most people do need to live inside the confines of the box.
Yeah.
But there is a component of that which they still fail to understand, which is you still have to know people and build relationships, even if you're working at a company.
Yeah, definitely.
And who everybody has that story. Oh, I didn't get the promotion because so-and-so's brother got it, or sister, or best friend.
Right. They put stank on like, it's all about who you know. I'm like, okay, then turn that into your advantage and quit crying.
Correct.
Like cry once and then go, I've learned the lesson. Now I need to, maybe you can't be that person's brother, but what you can do is be that person's right hand. And this guy's so useful, we cannot afford to not promote them. If he doesn't get promoted, he's going to leave, and then somebody else is going to get this guy's brain, ideas, work ethic, combination thereof. Like, that's where you need to place yourself.
And furthermore, by having the ability to build quality relationships with a bunch of people, you can also build remarkable teams for your company.
You can attract talent.
You can attract talent. You can attract investors. You can attract customers. You can solve problems. I don't have to know how to do anything. I'm the dumbest guy in my company.
That's a good place to be.
It is.
To a point.
No, I mean, truthfully,
to a point, yeah.
I surround myself with world-class talent. And the reason I'm able to do that is because of my network and because I'm able to give a vision, to your point, and be the guy who will deal with the uncomfort and create a structure that allows them to shine and use their intellect, their all the great skills that they bring, and we can put something amazing together.
It's funny you mentioned that. I run a fully remote team, except for my wife, who does live in our house, which, anyway. So you
can't work here, though. You must go to the coffee shop.
You got to go to the office.
Yes.
So people always ask, like, how do you make sure people are working and doing this and are actually showing to put it in it? The trick is you hire people who are actually able to self-manage to a degree. Like, yes, if things don't get done, we find out and we know. But the trick is to hire somebody who doesn't need a bunch of that. And so they go, aren't you just managing people all the time? Not really. No. The video guy does his thing. The audio engineer does his thing. Show notes guy does his thing. The admin people do their thing. My producers do their thing. Really? Yeah. Well, I do pay above market, so that helps.
Sure. That gets you the higher quality.
It gets me higher quality people who then don't go, I'm not getting paid enough. I'm just not going to do this until they make me do it. I don't get that. That's never happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I've hired poorly before and they last a week and then they're gone, or 2 weeks. But my team that's been with me for a decade and a half, some of these folks, I never have to worry about them. Sometimes when they go on vacation, I go, hey, did this thing get done? And they go, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm still at the airport. My flight. That happens. Sure. But I don't go, hey, did you work this week? Oh, I was wondering when you were going to make me do that. I'd never have to deal with that. But you see people who have not done this well, and their life is just a nightmare of management because they're trying to save like $1,000 per pay period. And it's so they're not sleeping. No thanks. Terrible trade.
No, it is. It is. And I think what you are talking about with this whole story is creating your own luck. Because everyone always says luck. I don't get that luck. Those breaks don't,
Yeah.
And between my group, you have Fenster luck, but I'm a big believer in creating it. Because what you did with the letter to get into Michigan Law School,
right?
You allowed yourself the opportunity to get lucky.
Yes.
That everyone's, that's not fair. It's not fair because you didn't do it.
It's not fair because you didn't think of it.
And I'll tell you, if everyone did it, you wouldn't have gotten lucky.
It wouldn't have. They would have gone, oh, here's yet another letter with this person who thinks
now they have a stack of letters.
Throw those away.
But you stood out, and so you created luck, and it's why I jokingly always wonder when I've gone deep sea fishing why there's 20 rods on the boat and we throw 3 in when we stop to fish. Why don't we put all 20 in?
Right.
There's fish in the water.
Yeah.
Let's put bait on them all. I want to get lucky. I don't want to sit here all day.
There's a certain limit to how creative you should be with this stuff. I don't know how relevant this is, but I was talking with the admissions committee people, like, how do I? This is great. Thanks. Tell me what pushed you. And they said, well, you sent the letter, but you didn't send a videotape And I go, who's sending videotapes? And the movie Legally Blonde had come out like, I don't know, a handful of years before we went to law school. And so people were sending in videotape things, which they now say, like, don't send that. And people are like, well, I'm going to be different and send it. They just don't play it.
Sure.
Why would they? They want to be able to skim something and go on to the next.
Also, do they want to potentially get a virus on their computer?
Well, yeah. Well, back then it was VHS tapes, which is even more kind of ghetto.
That's true.
That's how old we are. So that's how we know what we're talking about.
It was DVDs.
Right? Yeah, sure it was. So I forget what I had a point somewhere, didn't I? Yes. I think
it was.
Don't be
too creative.
Don't be too creative. You really don't need to do too much to differentiate yourself. Again, most people are in the box. You don't have to be outside, way off the reservation. I think we're not supposed to say that anymore, but whatever. You don't have to be way out here to do it. You really have to be like box adjacent, and you're good.
Yeah.
And what that does is it sort of puts a limit to the uncertainty, because you can sort of jump back into the box as needed if something really goes wrong. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I'm going. You know what? I'm just going to go and get a bunch of tutors and just try and battle up this hill. And it was interesting because law school was kind of like that. It was, okay, I got in here through unconventional means. How do I maximize my law school experience by unconventional means? There was very limited ways to do that. They didn't want people doing that. They took your first year grades. That's what people wanted to see for jobs. So I went, okay, bust ass the first year. Get tutors, make sure people know what I'm doing, talk to the professors, make sure they know I mean business and that I feel like I might not be suited to getting an A in their class. So I need them to look out for me as much as they're willing to do. That really helped also. You know, I remember going to office hours and going, hey, I kind of feel like maybe I don't belong here. And they'd go, well, you did get in. And so then they're going, when they see your stuff, instead of going, this cocky son of a, they're going, oh, this is the guy who thought he didn't belong here and this isn't half bad. Yeah. So you're almost anchoring like, he's not. He's probably not going to do it. Actually, passable. Okay, I like it.
Strategically lowering expectations.
Yes, I did that. I did a bunch of that. And now with some professors, they were like, "Get out of my office. I don't really care."
Sure.
Other professors were like, "You know what? I'm rooting for you." That goes a long way when things are graded on a curve.
Yeah.
You know, it really does. And another sort of trick. And I don't know why we're giving college tips, but here we go, because you can apply this stuff elsewhere. The toughest professors, I said, hey, you know, after this class is over, I know I'm not your dream student, but I would like to do some sort of research or other work for you. And then they think, oh, so I might not be done with this guy right after the class. There might be a longer term relationship here. Maybe I should be less of a hard ass just in case. And again, some professors didn't care. Other professors, you get them thinking on a longer time scale. And people think less transactionally. And I guess I do that in real life as well, right? Yeah. Quote unquote real life. If you can get people to think, I'm going to interact with this person more than once, they behave differently towards you. And I would say, even if you're not a business owner, think about how you behave towards somebody you know you're never going to see again. If you're courteous, that's probably it. What if you know that you're going to see that person 100 more times over the next 10 years? You're going to be a totally different, more open, more friendly person. So go into, and this is tough, but it's important, go into every interaction in your life thinking, I'm almost certainly going to see or deal with this person again. You will find yourself just that one extra second of eye contact, that one extra second of, what was your name again? Oh, Tom, nice to meet you, man. Yeah, I appreciate everything you did. You're going to go into this with a longer time horizon, less transactional, less I'm never going to see them again, so I don't care what their name was, less, you know, I'm not going to leave the dirty napkin on the table because I'm going to see these people again. Am I going to be the guy who left a dirty-ass napkin on the table? Like, these little things make a huge difference. So just go into every interaction thinking, I'm going to see this person again. You'll find that they will treat you differently as well, because most people treat them like they're never going to see them again.
And you also don't know who they are.
Well, yeah, you might also actually see them again.
No, but the point, you just don't know who they are. We have this
true.
I see this too often. We classify who we're meeting based on, did he or she show up in an expensive car, expensive clothes, or are they the checkout clerk at the grocery store and I don't know why they're going to help me, so I'm going to ignore them.
Right.
But they don't realize how powerful that person could be. Number one, there's 8 billion people on the planet, and you maybe know 150, and you maybe have a decent relationship with 20 to 40.
Yeah, if that.
If you can add one more person to that, that's great.
It's huge. It's
someone
huge.
who actually has your best interest at heart.
This stuff happens to me all the time, by the way. So a long time ago, again, it's funny, it's all coming back to law school. I lived in the dorms. It's called.
You just graduated last week, though, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. It's called yes, thank you. 1 week ago, plus 16 years, or probably more like 20 now. I don't even want to think of it.
Yeah, don't age me.
I lived in the Lawyers Club, which is a fancy name for dorms. And next to me was this guy named Cisco, just like the rapper. And, whatever. I got along with my neighbors, and he was a nice guy. Fast forward to me moving to L.A. years and years and years later. He emails me and says, hey, I think you live in L.A., right? I saw it on Facebook or whatever. And he goes, my best friend from childhood is thinking about moving out there. Would you talk to him on the phone? I was terribly busy, but of course I said yes because it's my neighbor from law school. Why not? So I talked to this guy, tell him which neighborhoods are nice, which are a little bit rough, where he might be able to work. He turned out to be interested in podcasting. So it's like, oh, there's these companies you could apply here before you get out here. Thought nothing of it. Years later, I walk into this podcasting studio and there's no room, but I need to record something and I've got this thing planned. And the guy goes, Jordan. And I go, hey, do I know you? And he goes, yeah, I talked to you on the phone years ago before I moved out here. Who are you here with? Oh, I'm here for a meeting with Rodney, but I heard that he's gone for the day. And he's like, he's not really gone for the day. He's just trying to buy time for calls. Let me go get him. So that was the guy that I had spoken to on the phone. And he was like, I will never forget the fact that you took time out of your day to do that. And he ended up getting a job in my industry. I didn't really help him at all, I thought, but I did, right? A lot of other people who lived in LA were like, I'm not going to get on the phone with a stranger. And I did that. And I do that kind of thing all the time. The lift is nothing. Like, you forget that you've done it. It's such a trivial amount of work. And yet those people are in a position where they really need your help. So that little goes a long way is very scalable. If somebody needs an introduction to somebody, I will almost always make it if it's appropriate, because it doesn't cost me anything. I can make an introduction 100 times a day. I mean, at that point, it takes a bit of time, but who cares?
And don't send video of asking for this stuff, please.
Yeah, or a voice message. If I can't look at it in 2 seconds and act on it, it's extra work for me. So, yeah, don't even get me started on voice memos, man, or videos. Don't send those. I will tell you that I can't play it, and I'm only sort of lying.
Right.
So...
because it's in the trash, so I can't play it.
It is in the trash. I've already deleted it. I can't play it. So making those introductions, that could be huge for that person. And meanwhile, you're waiting for your coffee in line at Starbucks, or you're like boarding an airplane on your phone. Those little tiny gestures go a long way for some folks. And like I said, they're scalable. I'm part of my 6-minute networking thing, the free course that I give to everybody who wants it. I don't know can I plug that crap here?
I would love it if you do.
Yeah, 6minute-networking.com. It's free. There's no upsells or anything. And it's just little tiny tips that take a few minutes a day on growing your network and creating relationships with people in ways that are not like gross.
Yep.
And one of the things in this course, one of the tricks in this course, is just to make introductions, double opt-in introductions to people pretty much on a daily basis, or reach out to people on a daily basis. A lot of these things go nowhere. Who cares? Don't keep score. It's another sort of principle. Making those introductions is highly scalable. You can do 100 a week, no problem. It's really not going to take too much of your time. And if one of those people ends up giving you some sort of opportunity, a speaking gig, a reference, whatever it is, that's a big deal. And so it's a sort of unlimited leverage to do this kind of thing. And I have been doing this for years, and it's worked out exceedingly well.
Yes. I mean, everyone knows I'm a huge proponent of this. It's what I do as well. I am a fan of you, and the first time I had ever heard your name was associated with a phrase, dig your well before you're thirsty,
right,
which I know also is a book.
From the 90s.
From the 90s,
which
but
basically
I had not
means
read.
it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it didn't exist. I heard it from you, so I give all credit to you.
I'll take
it. But when I
heard
you say that, and I heard you say it on some show many, many years ago as I was kind of organizing my thoughts about how I've built relationships, and it was just so profound for me, because when you said that, I was like, dig a well before you're thirsty. Most people don't do that.
They don't do that.
When it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
Oh, now I want to get into podcasting. Let me reach out to Jordan and hope that he'll meet with me, a stranger, versus if I'd spent my years curating relationships, now I go, who do I know in these verticals, in these industries? And because I've built an army of friends across all different industries, I have people to reach out to.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I get it, man. I get it. When you're a student, you go, and I get this from young people all the time. They go, why should I network? I don't need anything. And I go, okay, thought experiment. Who would you rather help? Somebody that you met yesterday that emailed you asking for something, or somebody that you met years ago and has never asked you for anything, but also really hasn't done much with you? Just somebody you're vaguely familiar with. And they go, yeah, it would be the person I'm vaguely familiar with. Okay, so the person that you simply know they exist, that person has an advantage over the person that reached out yesterday and desperately needs something? Yeah. Okay, so what happens if you're of moderate utility for 2 years, 1 year, 18 months before you actually need something. Do you have a massive advantage? Yes, of course you do. So students will often say, but I don't have any money. I don't know anyone. I'm not going to be useful. And a counterexample that I love, there was a guy who wrote into my show and he said, I took your example and I started I think it was called like a cybersecurity club at his university. So what it was is all the kids that were interested, I say kids now, even though they're like 24. God. All the people that were interested in cybersecurity joined his little organization. They would have speakers and talk about like which companies are hiring and resumes and do we need to get certified in Microsoft, whatever, for the next generation of security stuff. They would do all that kind of thing. Well, when they were going to apply for jobs, he was in a really competitive school. I think it was like Cal or something. It was, cybersecurity program was top notch. Places were recruiting from there, but it was like, oh man, this is a really competitive market. What he was able to do is go, oh, and I'm the founder of the cybersecurity club. And the recruiter went, oh, so you know everybody from your school who's interested in cybersecurity and is not just pretending to be because they want a job. And also you kind of know who like the deadbeat people are in your school who are interested in cybersecurity, but you also know who the most talented, smartest people are in the club as well. And you know a bunch of people from the industry because you've been reaching out and getting a speaker every month or every other month through the 3 or 4 years that you've been creating your degree. So you're somewhat networked. People want to hire you. You know who the good qualified students are from your own school. You could save me a lot of time. Mm-hmm. And he went, oh, yeah, sure. Here's a list of all the people that I think are really good. Here's the people I don't know that well. Here's 2 people that I think are totally full of crap and you should probably stay away from. And the recruiter hired him because now he knows, and he also knew younger people who are up and coming and going to graduate. So she's like, not only do I want to hire you for this class, I want you to help me figure out who to hire for this class and who to help me hire for the next class from your university for the next couple of years because you know all of those people. So he was extremely useful other than having a degree from the school in that industry. He ended up working with HR and having a job in cybersecurity at his dream company. And that was because he formed a club and emailed people from the industry to create connections and bring them in to come speak. I mean, that is a light lift, man.
And then led with value to the recruiter.
Right.
Said yes. Didn't say, well, I'm not going to do that or it
takes too much time.
Worth my time.
Right.
I mean, what are you wasting your time doing?
Yeah.
How hard is it when you need something to cold call and solicit and beg and plead and wonder and hope?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
when
it's a lot
thirsty,
more work.
It's a lot harder to dig that well. Going back to your phrase.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that. My phrase.
Your phrase. Oh, very, very creative.
I think it was Harvey McKay, but I'm going to have to Google that.
Because it's yours. I'm not gonna hear it.
He's 100 years old now.
But it's so much easier when you're not thirsty to dig that well and have it. And, I wrote a book on relationships called Relationship Bank Account because I believe every relationship is a bank account. It's a ledger. And as I make deposits in a lot of people's bank accounts because I lead with value, I help, I try to give advice where I can and be a resource, I am wealthy in relationships where I've earned the right to call and ask for something or make a withdrawal.
Sure.
And I do that. I use that phrase for me because it's something more people understand, like a bank account.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel a lot of people are broke in relationships.
They are, or they're worse, they're overdrafted, where it's like, all right, I'm going to throw you a flyer even though I really don't know you that well or I really don't have anything. You're sort of a black box for me. This could go wrong. I'm not going to introduce you to my top contacts because if you blow it, I'm going to look bad.
Sure.
But I'll give you like a little foot in the door. Okay, better than nothing. Most people aren't even going to give you that. But if you're somebody where you go, you know what, this kid is outstanding. He's got great skills. He's good with people. He's not going to let me down. I'll bring that kid in the room, man. And then it's, oh, okay, now he didn't need money.
Yep.
He didn't need to come pre-assembled. So these people, really, it's about who you know. Mark Cuban, who to name drop somebody who we all probably know, you're not going to impress that guy with however much money you have as a college student.
You're not.
It's impossible. You're probably not going to impress him with your accolades as a student or even a new founder. It's not going to happen. What you might be able to do for somebody like that is go, I know a bunch of different founders. They're at this school. A few of them have really good pitches. Can I bring them to you? And he will say yes. Now you're the guy who's bringing him like non-time wasting ideas from other founders. That's a great place to be. Now, you're a conduit. It's not your idea. It's not your money. It's just people you know that are useful to him. And now when you need something, you got his ear. You've earned it.
That's right.
It's really not that complicated. The problem is that it takes work initially up front that doesn't have an immediate payoff. And most people are only looking at what's in it for them right off the bat. They're thinking transactionally, right? Or they're keeping score and they're going, yeah, well, I did 3 things for this person, so I don't want to do any more for them. Well, have they wronged you? Have they been taking advantage of you? No, but I just don't see how they can help me. Yeesh, man, you're in for a rough ride.
And they also fail to understand that as people, move higher up on the success podium, like you use a Mark Cuban, if Mark was even considering working with you because you're building yourself up to a point where maybe there's an opportunity, Mark's not just jumping into bed with you tomorrow.
Right.
He's going to ask around to people that hopefully know you.
That's a good point.
And so if you're consistent, you are dedicated, you are continuously doing this, and more people could, oh yeah, I know Jordan, he's great. Oh yeah, Jordan did this. Oh, I love Jordan. If 3 or 4 people that Mark trusts validate you, guess what? You're at the very top of the list.
It is. It's look, again, to the uncertainty, right? People who are in a certain position, they don't want to bet on an unknown horse. They don't want to go, there's this person over here that nobody knows that could be a con man for all I know, and I could do a bunch of due diligence and figure out they're not. Or there's this guy over here that 2 of my friends have said is smart and has helped them with something in the past, and they have a proven track proven track record of something else. Great, whatever. That's just such an obvious. It's way less risky. It's such an obvious win over the other person who could be risky or doesn't have a track record or doesn't have anybody vouching for them. And so if we don't have a track record, you're 25 and this is your first venture, the best thing you can have while you're building what's hopefully a great track record is a bunch of really good connections that will vouch for you.
And life is long.
Yeah, that hopefully, right?
Right. But I'm saying, however long it is, it's the duration of your life. And so, a lot of times you don't have the skills to. I can't be a lawyer tomorrow if I'm trying to go to law school, and I can't be all of a sudden an AI expert. If I'm like, I want to learn about AI, but I can make connections today. I can actually be successful at something to the point of what you started with, which take action. What can you take action today to change the entire course of your life? That 1 degree.
Yeah.
And it might take a minute, a week, a month, a year, 2 years to see it, but it can happen today. And you can actually become remarkable at it today without any current resources. You just have to be a friend and start to lead with value, be curious, and start to ask questions and help people.
People having a bias towards action is massive. And I know some people are going, but okay, what do I learn? I know AI is the thing, but do I need to, you should be familiar with that, of course. But look, if that's not super interesting for you, I get it. What about learning Mandarin? That's tough. It's a tough language to learn. It's totally doable. Not many people do it. If you suddenly learn Mandarin and there's a concept that I've talked about on the show called skill stacking. I wish I could remember who came up with this. This is not my idea, but it's very hard to become top 1% in any field. It's really hard to become a top 1% podcaster. It's really tough to become a top 1% lawyer. It's really tough to become a top 1% franchisor of anything or builder of anything, companies. It's a lot easier to become the top 10%. In fact, that's a massive, it's quite a bit larger, 10 times larger, in fact. I think that's how math works. Don't quote me on that. That's why I became a lawyer. It's a lot larger of a number. It's a lot easier to get there. So you might not be the top 1% attorney in this area, but you might be like a top 10% lawyer in a specific field of, let's say, IP. You're not going to be a top 1%er in AI, man, unless you got a PhD from MIT. But you could become a top 10%er if you're very familiar with how all these things work. When new courses come out, you take them and you're always on the cutting edge of that stuff. You get your finger on the pulse. You're in the top 10% of that. You're not going to become a top 1% podcaster or media figure, but you can easily be top 10% is basically keep showing up for a year and everybody else quits. I mean, you'll be fine. If you combine those things, well, now you're the Mandarin speaking IP lawyer, AI familiar media figure. You're like the only one of those.
Yes.
Right? That's it.
And you just nailed it. To get into the top 10% is actually somewhat easy. The reason why the top 1% is hard is because everyone who figured out how to get in the top 10% are already successful individuals with the right mindset.
Right.
Now you're competing, and now it's going to get down to the tough.
Yeah.
Right.
You're competing against hyper specialization.
Yeah. You're competing against other people who are thinking like you are. So now it is back to that standardized test box. So you have to now get creative outside of that. But do you know how much success you can have in life if you're in the top 10% of all the things you do?
Yeah. It's take it from me. That's my whole advantage. Yeah, the top 1% podcasting, that was kind of an accident. I was just hoping to talk about things I was interested in with the Jordan Harbinger show, but getting a law degree and then learning a bunch of languages and traveling to a bunch of cool places like North Korea and all these off the beaten.
North Korea?
Yeah, 4 times, yeah. Or more than 4 times, actually. traveling to all these off the beaten path places, learning a bunch of languages, learning a bunch about whatever tech. Like that really puts me in this sort of unique circle that there's just not that many other people that I know that are in. But I'm not a top 1% lawyer. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't hire me for any legal work. Actually, I just technically passed the bar and kept paying my dues. I mean, that's where we're at right now. So being in that circle makes you very unique, and it makes you very sought after. You don't have to compete. If I was competing against all these other lawyers, I would be hitting the books, working 7 days a week, but I probably wouldn't have the show. I probably wouldn't have the languages. I probably wouldn't have the travel, right? So it's really that skill stacking mix. And the reason that this is important is a lot of the younger folks that are listening right now are like, oh, I can't start a business in X niche. I have to be the best at that. Do you? Not really. I mean, look, Everbull and the things you've created are fantastic. They're game changing, but they didn't start that way.
No.
Right?
And now I'm average.
Now you've got the build out. You got WeBuild. You've got Everbull. You've got a bunch of other things going on that coagulate, to use a disgusting term, into a fantastic business. But if you wanted to be like the #1 franchise builder in the world, that now you're say goodbye to being a good parent. Mm-hmm. I mean, say goodbye. Like you're just doing that one thing. It's not. I guess what I'm trying to say is to get to the top 1% from the top 10%. It's not 10 times more work. It's 1,000 times more work, or 100 times.
And
more
there's
work.
Some things that are just going to be restricted that are out of your control now. Now you don't control, to the point where people want to understand about how do I ensure, because I believe success is a formula. The top 1%, I can't guarantee that for anybody.
Right.
Because you may just be naturally have better gifts than I do, and there's nothing I can do.
There's luck. There's timing. Correct. Oh, how did you make your show so big? Well, step 1, show up at the beginning of podcasting.
Yeah.
Right. Step 2,
today, it's a lot harder.
Step 2, don't quit. Yeah, if people go, oh, how do I scale up to where you are today? I have no idea. Could I do this again? If I had to start over again, tall order,
if I had to start Everbull today, I don't think I could do what I did, because when I started it, 3 out of 10 people were like, what the hell is acai?
I've never heard. What is that?
Yes. Yeah, bacon and eggs was the first person who walked into an Everbull asked me for. Now,
oh, wow.
Yeah, literally, the first customer ever in Everbull stood at my menu and said, I don't know what this is. Can you make me bacon and eggs?
Yeah. Oof. That's a tough moment. You're like, am I in the wrong business?
Now, timing was great for me,
but
it was also lucky. I didn't realize, I wasn't like, oh, this is the perfect timing. Right. If I had to do it today, could I recreate it? Probably not.
You got to find the next acai, which is like, what is that? I don't even know.
So it is about luck, but you can win stack or luck stack by being in the top. But the things that I could control, the things that I can ensure is I can get into the top 10%. Mm-hmm. I can be successful by taking action, being curious, leading with value, having a network, having fun at what I do, trying to be the best at what I can, aim for the 1%. But to fall back and be a top 10, of course, I mean, everyone knows you, everyone knows your show. I mean, you're one of the top podcasters in the world. You are amazing at it. You did have the right skills. The timing was there, but you also had the skills to back it up. If you were not good at it, you wouldn't be who you are and where you are today.
That's true. I will say a lot of that has been built over time. Like when people go back to early episodes of the Jordan Harbinger show, I get this letter all the time. Like, wow, you can really hear the improvement. And to myself, I go, oh, I guess so. It doesn't really occur to me. But people who just jump from like they're at episode 10 and then they come back to the current one, or they listen to a current one and they're like, this is good. I'm going to start from the beginning. They go, oh, wow. He's made some moves since the last 2,000 episodes. And if you go back to my previous podcasts that I did before I even started the Jordan Harbinger show, they're just not that good. Pat Flynn and I, we were talking. I know you know him. You grew up together.
Good lifelong friend.
He gave a talk at an event we were at a long time ago, and he played a clip, or I think it was a video clip of his first episode, and it was like, hey guys, I'm just like going to do this video channel thing, and I don't even really know what I'm going to talk about or anything. And it was like, TikTok, when are you going to say something? And he's, just like, it just seems like fun to be on camera, and I got this cool thing, and what should that's pretty much it. I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. And everyone's laughing because he's on stage giving a keynote at like Traffic and Conversion or whatever giant event. And there's this clip of him looking like a child in a hoodie talking to some, 10 megapixel video webcam. And it's hilarious because he's not doing it. You can't really appreciate how far you've come until you can do like a direct comparison. So my point is, while you might listen to people listen and go, Jordan, I'm not as talented as you on the podcast front. Well, okay, I've had 18 years to build talent.
Sure.
So I'm glad you're not. That would be really depressing if you had shown up at the level where I am now. It means like that. And
it means you didn't get better at all.
It means I didn't get better at all, or not nearly as much, or you're incredibly talented, in which case you have up until now missed your calling as a broadcaster, and you should jump in immediately. So that's good news for you, right? Like, you're going to crush it if you're already as good as somebody who's been doing this for 18 years. So this stuff gets built over time, and I think we really have the tendency as humans to compare our blooper reel with other people's highlight reel.
Yep.
And we'll look at this set and we go, oh gosh, I don't have $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever for this reality TV and the black magic camera setup and the lighting and the office space. I don't have that. Dude, no one cares. This is fun. I love it, but you do not need this for a podcast. You need the equivalent of this and, a room that doesn't sound like a bathtub, and you are good. Most of the listeners are going to forgive you. A couple of my friends are massive YouTubers, and up until very recently, what they did was they aimed a point-and-shoot camera at their face, and they talked a little bit louder. Mm-hmm. That was their whole thing. Now they've got their DSLR camera set up or whatever that they do when they go to Paris to do their travel video. I've got other travel influencer buddies, millions of followers. So what equipment do you use? They go, oh, I hold a GoPro in my hand and I have this lavalier thing that like is a wire. And I go, you're walking around Marrakech like this? And he's like, yeah, it works. Okay.
That's all you need.
So people get hung up on like, well, I need to have this and I need to have that. It's the bias towards action, the just get started. I'm so glad that when I started podcasting, there were no stats and microphones were generally crap and were not designed to be used with computers.
Sure.
Now there's just analysis paralysis, looking at all these choices and like, oh, I've got to set up this and that. It's really, the bias towards action was easier back then.
For sure.
Another thing I will say is that's not necessarily specifically podcasting related is when I first started, there were no podcasting statistics that you could look at. So you didn't know how many people were listening to your show. It just didn't really show you. I'd like to extrapolate that to any other industry that you're in, because I didn't quit early because I had no idea how many people are listening. I see these threads all the time on Reddit where people are podcasting and they're like, oh, I kind of want to quit because only a few hundred people are listening to each episode. Do you know how many? You can't fit. This is a nice big office. If you had 400 people in here, it would be ass to elbow and uncomfortable. It would be hot. The AC would be giving out and nobody would be able to go take a piss.
That's right.
And these people are like, wah, I only talk to that many people each week when I do my episode about books or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever it is. It's a losing mindset. I had no idea how many. I still don't know if I was talking to 2,000 people, 20 people, or 20,000 people. No clue.
But I think it's important to understand why you're podcasting. Because if you're podcasting just to have an arbitrary number of listeners without a goal, then I think you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Absolutely.
The reason I have the studio, the reason I do this show is because I want to build relationships with specific type of human like yourself. Mm-hmm. And I require, as you know, for the last year and a half, we've been trying to make this happen. And, your wife who does a lot of your scheduling kept saying, well, we could do it here. He's going to be here. Mm-hmm. And I kept saying, no, I only film in my studio. I couldn't have you come and then it'd just be a little GoPro into my back room.
You've got your branding
like,
thing.
What the hell are we doing here for?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I had to create the experience. Right. So when you come, you go, okay, I get why he made me come all the way here.
Yeah, I get it. This thing's awesome, by the way. I kind of want one of these.
Well, as I said, you're always welcome to use mine.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But it was a purpose for me. Mm-hmm. I don't care how many listeners in the objective sense. I want to help as many people as I can through the show. And if it's 400 avid listeners who are gaining value, yay to me, because I'm not trying to make money from this. Isn't my career.
Right.
Now, if it is your career, you got to make money, and then, of course, the numbers matter. But you got to leave with value. And if it's 400 today, what can you do to get better to make it 405?
I agree with that. Another thing, and this is sort of a rant that's probably a little out of place to stop me, I think a lot of people start something they love and they turn it into a business, and it's kind of a mistake. They ruin, podcasting is a great example.
Yeah.
Or social media, anything. They start a podcast and they go, oh, I think I'm going to quit. I'm not making any money, or I don't have a big audience. If you're building Lego sets, are you going, oh, I can't wait until I can monetize this. I'm going to make so much money building this. Nobody's collecting trains or stamps and going, one day the big bucks are going to start rolling in, man. And if they don't, I'm going to quit. No one does that. Certain sort of business niches, people are doing that. And they need to decide if they want a business or if it's a hobby. And you need to be honest with yourself about that. I think a lot of people start media production on social media and they go, oh, I'm just having fun showcasing food in my area. Is that really it? Because if that's it, you've already won the first time you go to a restaurant, you do your review.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make a career out of it, be honest with yourself, because then you will actually take the right steps. I think a lot of people, they exist in this sort of limbo area where they want it to be successful, but they also don't want to admit to themselves that they want to make it successful. So they're not doing everything they need to do to make it successful because they're in the business of lying to themselves about how much they don't care and about how much it's a hobby.
They've turned a hobby into a job,
right?
But the job they're doing mediocre because it's a hobby.
Yeah, so they've ruined their hobby successfully, but they don't have a business either. It's okay to be in a business that's not successful yet. It doesn't feel great because of social media influencers being like, oh, look at my Bugatti that I got from posting YouTube videos. Like, those people are not helping.
Correct. And most of them don't own the Bugatti.
And it's a rented Bugatti. Or it's their neighbor's Bugatti and the guy's not home. And it's in the driveway, right?
And I'll say this. If they're showing it off for the purpose of impressing you,
they're trying to make you feel bad.
If they own all those Bugattis, why aren't they just driving their Bugattis? And who the hell cares if you're impressed or not, stranger?
Right. If they're in the business of impressing you, something is wrong.
Yeah. You don't necessarily need to follow that. I want to follow the success traits of other successful people because success leaves clues.
Have you ever? I can't remember who told me this, but it's a lot of these super. Oh, it's probably a Scott Galloway thing. The guy I love Scott. The guy who told you to follow your passion made his billions in iron smelting, and along those same lines, I know you travel in certain circles. Like all these super wealthy, successful guys that I know, if you put them next to a bunch of sort of beer drinking construction worker foremen, you couldn't tell who's who. Maybe one guy has like $1,200 shoes and the other guys have like, work boots on. That's it, man. You really can't tell. These sort of hedge fund manager guys, they're wearing the same they're wearing the Dickies stuff like everybody else. It's very interesting to see. And then you see these guys who are flashy and it just makes me so suspicious, man. They're in the business of impressing you. What is going on? What's the reason?
Yeah, well, and usually it's unfortunately because they make their money off of some derivative of those impressed individuals.
Exactly.
Buy this from me because that's how I make my money, so I have to impress. And there's nothing wrong with creating an environment or a community that showcases what success can look like.
Sure.
But it's unique. It's personal. Yeah. Success to me is getting the enjoyment of my family and having enough freedom to do what I want when I want. I don't need a Ferrari to show you that I have a Ferrari. I don't care. I'd rather you not know if I have a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Because I want privacy when I'm in my personal life. And I make my money doing what I do. I don't need you to enter my sphere. Like when I speak on stages, I don't pitch products and services because I don't have anything to pitch. I have my businesses. If you want to buy an Everbull, spend $8, $10. That's what I need you to do.
Or buy a franchise.
Sure.
Better yet, spend $400,000 to buy a franchise.
But maybe not, because we're going to say no to more people than we're going to say yes to.
That's true. Yeah.
We're not available for everybody. We're not the right fit for everybody, and I think that's one of the marks of success. You don't let anybody be on your show.
Of course not. Yeah. How do you know? I know I'm taking over your show, but I'm so curious.
He's the pro.
I have this bad habit of doing this and a lot of podcasts, but I don't care. I'm so curious. So as the founder, can you roll into any Everbowl and drop like a little card and get stuff for free?
I have an app.
You have an app?
But it's not free because the way the app works is
it just pays with a corporate card.
We pay them because of the way it works. And I actually like to pay.
Well, I figured that much. I'm always wondering, I'm like, okay, if the guy who runs Chipotle nationally, does he just roll in and like has a card and can buy whatever? This is what us plebes wonder about when we roll into an Everbowl. Like, is Jeff Fenster paying? And the answer is yes, because it's easier than setting up a.
Well, and I don't necessarily want them to know who I am.
Oh, are you doing undercover boss?
No, but I mean, I don't go in and be like, you know who I am?
You know who I am? Yeah.
No, I show up and I dress average, normal.
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to go, oh, this freezer is always breaking. Can you come back here and take a look? And you're like, I don't feel like getting sticky right now, bro.
Yeah,
I'm good.
No, I'd rather just show up, buy the food, enjoy it, see the customers, see the interaction, see what it really is. Because if I'm there, everyone's going to be on their best behavior.
Right.
And that's not a good experience.
No.
Then I don't really know what's going on.
Got to find out who the bums are.
Yes. Got to find out where the leaks are.
That's right. That's interesting. Yeah, my wife and I were like, I wonder if he just goes around and goes to different locations and buys.
Well, funny. So I will say. So we build all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just doing some cabinets and some closets, and I hired a company. And one of the guys on my team was like, "Why didn't you let us do it? And just you have the company that can do it." And I didn't even realize in my head that I could have used my own company to build cabinets for myself.
Yeah.
Because it's a purpose.
Right. You're that's funny. Like, you could have just had us come to your home and do it. Yeah.
Well, or like,
that's funny.
My daughter likes yogurt and granola. Well, we buy granola from
Trader Joe's.
Sprouts. She has this very one she likes. And I never bring home Everbowl granola, even though we make it, and obviously I have it, and I get it much cheaper than I do the store-bought.
Yeah. I'll pay 500% markup to get the one that
I don't even like as much.
Right.
But it's funny. Just, I don't connect those dots. It's a business, and one's my personal. And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Now I say it out loud. Maybe I should be buying our own granola, but
as soon as my kids are old enough to talk in complete sentences, I'm going to have them doing ad reads on the show.
You should.
Yeah, it's they got to earn their keep around here.
I mean, we could go forever, and I didn't even get into the areas of you being kidnapped and all the things I've heard, I've learned, I've listened to, and I know are curious. But I really thought that this was a better talk from, for our audience. We hear so much about success. We hear so much about different ways to find success, and I love the fact on how you've built your empire on relationships, on ensuring that those foundational principles are there, taking the action, and leading with it regularly.
Yeah.
And I don't think we talk about it enough.
I agree with that. I think most people, they try and hide the ball when it comes to the blueprint for success, either so they can sell a course based on this, like on Instagram or TikTok, or because they literally don't know, or the luck factor was a primary thing for them, and they don't want to admit that to themselves and their audience because it makes it harder to monetize and replicate.
And I think the luck factor hits us all. It's just the question is, are you ready when that lucky opportunity comes?
Right.
If you're not and you don't realize it was there, well, then I'm sorry, but you had that same lucky opportunity. Everybody got waitlisted somewhere that applied.
I suppose.
Right? I got denied and waitlisted at lots of law schools. I wrote 0 letters.
Yeah.
Who knows what would have happened had I wrote that same letter?
You could be a lawyer right now instead of a business
owner.
Yes.
I have a law degree from a very mediocre 4th-tier law school. Sorry, alumni.
That's funny.
Not Michigan.
And slightly rude, but I'm here for it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
One question for you. Did you, when you were at Michigan, was Desmond Howard there?
I don't even know.
Okay.
I was studying.
That's fair. Well, not law, undergrad. Did you go to the football games?
I had the tickets and I sold them because they were, in the beginning, if the team was doing well, these guys in the corner would buy them. And I was like, do I want to go to the games or do I want $400 in
I totally respect
cash?
That, but gosh, I would have loved to experience Michigan football as a student.
2000, I went to some of the games. Those they were actually quite awesome, especially if it went into the night and they turned on the lights. That was pretty rad.
Because at U of A, we were good in basketball, but man, our football team sucked.
Oh yeah,
and it was hot.
Michigan football. Now that I'm not there, because I only went to undergrad and law school, I don't have other experience. When I look at other places, I go, oh, this kind of looks like a high school game. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the big house, and it's like there are currently 111,972 people watching the game with you today, and you're like, wow, that's bigger than the population of a mid-sized town. That's incredible. And we're all in one place.
I just heard a crazy stat yesterday at University of Nebraska. During a football game, it is the second largest city in the state of Nebraska with how many people are in the stadium.
That's insane.
It makes perfect. Well, it's Nebraska, which isn't a huge, dense bunch of big cities. Yeah, but still,
it's still incredible.
Yeah,
it's still incredible.
Coming from a big city like San Diego, it's like wow.
The energy is electric, even if you don't care about football or anything like me. It's just really there's something amazing about it. And then you're cheering on a guy who lives down the hall from you, and you're just like, oh, like
you see him in math class.
That's my buddy from math class. Yeah, and you're like, oh. And then you see him the next day, and you're like, oh, that kick was – don't talk about the kick, man. I can't handle it.
Well, it's different now because of NIL. These guys are worth $20 million.
Oh, yeah,
they're not probably going to math class.
They're not going to math class anymore. They have to. Don't they have to put up a facade that they are there for a reason other than –
You think they're waking up at 8 a.m. to go to your Math 103 class?
I think they have special classes that occur with tutors to help them get through.
That's fair.
We had that even back then.
That's fair. But I really, really appreciate you carving out some out of your family time to come and finally enjoy each other's company.
Likewise,
I've been trying. I think your show is incredible. In fairness, today's podcasting circuit and world is not what it used to be. I don't think we all have those 3 or 4 we always all listen to anymore. They jump, but yours is one of the few that I actively listen to. I love the guests. I love the questions. I'm learning from you. I'm definitely nowhere near the podcaster that you are, but I'm in 18 years.
Yeah,
I'm comparing my
notes.
Sky's the limit. I'm comparing my notes. So, we'll see.
Thanks, Jeff.
No, but thank you for coming on. Before we end, we have rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
So
let's do it.
You're going to stare in camera 1.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 4 questions.
Okay.
30-second-ish answers. No pressure. Are you ready for the heat?
Yep.
Okay. What is the number one mistake you see people make when they're trying to build a new relationship?
They keep score. They think, okay, I've done something for this person. Now they have to do something for me. It's transactional. It makes the other person not want to do anything with you, and it poisons the well.
In your over 1,000 plus interviews you've done on the Jordan Harbinger Show, what has been your favorite interview and why?
Oof, this is really tough, but I would say there's a former spy named Jack Barsky. Really interesting guy, pretended to be an American, had to train to be an American, learned all these Americanisms, and eventually, well, I don't want to spoil it too much, but he ended up getting caught, and what happened after that was pretty fascinating. Jack Barsky.
What's the most unexpected lesson you've learned from podcasting?
The fact that you can turn a hobby into a business and actually enjoy it still has been a delicate dance and a balance, and it's something that I'm grateful for because I do really feel like I'm not working most days.
And finally, what is the biggest mistake you see most interviewers make?
They do the same types of questions, or they don't prepare enough. They do something like, I'm going to read Wikipedia and then trust my organic conversation skills, and that doesn't always work out very well. You end up being asked the same questions over and over. You end up talking about the same things. Deep prep helps you have a more organic conversation because you know what to avoid, and you also know what you are interested in.
Well, you heard it here from absolutely one of the industry's best podcasters and one of the relationship experts. If you don't already listen to the Jordan Harbinger Show, honestly, you have to. It's fantastic. And take him up on that free 6-minute...
6minute-networking.com. That's
6-minute network. It's free.
It is free.
And it's going to change your life. As someone who, as I've said many times, 85-90% of all the wealth I've ever created has been based on who I know, not what I know, and the relationships that I have created and have. I recommend you learn from the absolute best. This man is a legend. Thank you so much for coming in today and spending some time with us. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Hey everyone. First, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And if you guys haven't heard about my new book, Relationship Bank Account, click the link in the show notes or search the title on Amazon. This book is packed with all my secrets to success in both relationships and life. Make sure to pick up a copy, and if the book helps you on your journey, let us know by leaving a review. I appreciate all of you and can't wait to see you on the next one.